Hi there, I'm Allison Banshee of Alongside Caregiver Consulting. I'm a certified caregiver consultant and a retired social worker, and I want to thank you for joining me for this overview of advanced care planning. When we think about wills, powers of attorney, and advanced care planning, we usually think that's far off in the distance, and we don't need to start thinking about that just yet. Now, for me, I'm not a long-term planner, so that's along the same lines as I used to think. But then things can happen that jolt us into a new way of thinking. An accident can take away our ability to speak for ourselves. So can a stroke or serious illness. Our cognitive capacity can be impacted by a form of dementia that could creep up on us gradually. And if you're a caregiver for someone who still has their cognitive abilities, but they don't have advanced care plans in place, it's important to help them make their wishes known while they still have capacity to do so. So the message for today is, let's start the conversation so we can begin to make our plans for our future care while we still have a voice. Here are the objectives of this presentation. That by the end of it, you would have an understanding of the importance of advanced care planning, that you would learn how to start the process of advanced care planning, that you would be less fearful of a topic that many of us choose not to think about, that you would perhaps gain an understanding of the steps involved in advanced care planning. You will notice that I say that there are 6 steps. I have added an additional step, and that's the step to review your plan once it's been made. But much of the information you may find online includes the first 5 steps only. Figure out where you will keep your documents. That's another thing I want you to think about in this presentation. I started to create this presentation as a workshop when COVID-19 caused us all to think more seriously about our own mortality. But then I set it aside until a good friend recently asked me for some information on a personal directive. And that reignited my motivation to share this vital information. And please note that this is an overview, and it is about starting your advanced care planning process, and it's not to take the place of legal or medical advice. And I would ask that you seek medical and legal advice as necessary. Who will be your voice if something takes away your ability to speak? There are numerous reasons why this may happen. Start planning so you have a voice in your own healthcare. In British Columbia, where I live, there is a great resource for advanced care planning. It's called My Voice, and much of the information provided in this presentation aligns with this resource. It contains definitions, and it actually provides the actual documents for you to fill in. That's their workbook. Now, here are the 6 stages for advanced care planning. Think, learn, decide, talk, record, and review. We start with the think stage, and here are some questions to ask yourself. What are your goals, your values, your preferences? And what kind of care at the end of your life would you want? Do you want your family beside you or someone to hold your hand as you're passing? What do you find meaningful in life, and what brings you joy? What's the one thing you couldn't live without? Is quality of life more important than adding extra days or years to your life? What is important spiritually or culturally for you? These questions help you decide what is important and relevant to you, and will help guide and shape your plan. And if you are wanting to age in place, the thinking stage is a great place to take a pause for some more personal reflections. You see, the majority of folks want to stay home as long as possible, as they want to enjoy their neighborhoods, their homes, their friends, their pets, and familiar surroundings as they age. And that may require making some adjustments to your home in preparation of possible mobility and changes in your health. An occupational therapist can certainly provide an assessment of your home. But to get the thinking process underway, here are some considerations. They're basic. Is it possible to make your home wheelchair or walker friendly with ramps, floating bathroom countertops, wider hallways or doorways, a walk-in shower, grab bars, raised toilet seats, good lighting? These are all considerations. If you have stairs, could you incorporate a stair lift, or would it be possible for you to live on one floor? Now we move on to the learn stage. You may consider this step as a fact-finding mission, especially if you have a health condition. If you're still healthy, it can be more about learning what your preferences and tolerances are as they pertain to what you would accept or would want for your own health care if something were to change in your health status. And if you have a health condition or a diagnosis, now is the time to talk to your healthcare provider about some of the points indicated here. It's also time to see what resources are available in your area, such as through health authorities, social agencies, social workers, online searches, etc. But before we continue, I want to address that there are many terms you may hear, and this list is not exhaustive. But this is the stage where you need to learn what words and phrases you will need to know for where you live. As I mentioned, I'm from British Columbia, and the presentation concentrates on advanced care planning in the province of British Columbia. But even if that's not where you live, hopefully you'll start thinking about your plan and find which documents you will need to let your wishes be known. Now, let's continue with the learn step. How does the law apply to advanced care planning? What documents will I need? Do I need help with the documents? And if you have questions, be sure to ask a legal professional such as a lawyer specializing in elder law. For me, as an adult, I've always had a will, and for that I use the services of a lawyer. But when working as a social worker, I learned it was important to have more documents to help with the what ifs. It's easy to decide, for me, on a power of attorney, as that related to the financial and legal matters. But the health piece, that was more challenging for me to consider. And I thought perhaps that was because it pertains to things outside of my control. And for these health matters, we need advance directives. As we continue to learn, we will look a bit closer at these documents in the next few slides. But please, again, seek legal advice for greater understanding, especially if you have questions. And remember that depending where you live, the documents you need may have different names and different legislation. Learn what applies in your jurisdiction. So briefly, an enduring power of attorney is where you identify another person to be your attorney. And by doing this, you give them authority to make decisions about your financial, legal, business, and property matters, with the continuation if you should become incapable due to medical condition or accident. It does not permit them to make healthcare decisions, and it is only in effect while you are alive. The power of attorney, or POA, is similar to the enduring power of attorney, except it does not continue if or when you become incapable, and it too ceases to be in effect when you pass away. We talk about representation agreements in the next two slides. They are called representation agreements because they are made under Section 7 and Section 9 of the Representation Agreement Act in British Columbia. The standard representation agreement is from Section 7, and it authorizes your representative, who you appoint, to make decisions regarding your routine financial matters, your personal care, and some healthcare decisions. This does not include decisions about life support or life-prolonging interventions. The representation agreement made under Section 9 is called the Enhanced Agreement, and it authorizes your representative, again, who you appoint, to make decisions regarding your personal and health care, including life support or life-prolonging medical interventions. But it does not permit your representative to make financial decisions for you. So if you would want financial decisions made, you would require a power of attorney as well as the representation agreement under Section 9. The Advance Directive provides written instructions to your healthcare provider about the healthcare you consent to or do not consent to. You make an advance directive when your cognitive ability is intact, and that is when you are considered a capable adult. It comes into effect when you become incapable and only relates to the healthcare treatments and conditions indicated in the document. So if you have a medical condition that requires a treatment decision that was not covered in your advance directive, then your temporary substitute decision maker will be called upon to make that decision in your place. So more information coming on the next slide on the temporary substitute decision makers. As previously mentioned, the documents do vary from province to province in Canada with similar intended purposes, but differing names and different legislations. So it makes sense to do some research and talk things over with a lawyer. It is very important to have discussions with your doctor and healthcare provider about your wishes pertaining to accepting or refusing healthcare treatments, as they will be written up as a medical order. And in British Columbia, that is called the MOST, or Medical Orders for Scope of Treatment. And this MOST is the health order that is relied upon in emergency or urgent situations. Now that we've done some learning, we can move to the stage of decision or decide. Here we're talking about your trusted person, someone who you identify to communicate your decisions for you. When you have a representative identified, you have more assurance that they, as your representative, will convey your wishes. They will be your voice. It helps to think of this person as a substitute decision communicator for you. Or it could help to think of it that way instead of a substitute decision maker, as they are communicating your wishes. Some considerations that may help in appointing or asking someone to be your substitute decision maker is, first of all, do you trust them? Do you like to share information with them? Are they your person? Are they calm in stressful situations? There is a hierarchy for the temporary substitute decision makers in British Columbia. And when you don't have an advance directive or representation agreement outlining your wishes for medical care or treatments, then the healthcare provider chooses a temporary decision maker for you from the list shown here. As part of your advanced care planning, you can provide a list of names of folks and their relationship to you that the healthcare provider can contact if they need someone to speak for you when you cannot speak for yourself. The list does follow the hierarchy outlined and cannot be changed. And because of that, if your preferred substitute decision maker is perhaps low on the hierarchy, such as a close friend, you may want to ask if they would be willing to be named as your representative in a representation agreement. Now we move on to the talking stage. You've done some thinking, some learning, decision making. So now it's time to start talking and relaying what you've decided to those who are important to you, who I like to call your team, your family, your close friends, your power of attorney, representative, medical care providers, all those people. In my experience, this may not be the easiest conversation to start. So here are a few suggestions to help open the dialogue. You may want to say, I want you to be prepared if you have to make decisions for me. I want to talk to you about what is important to me. I think it's really important that all the family understands my wishes. I'd like you to go to medical appointments with me. Again, it's really good to do some thinking about how to broach bringing your support team along on your plan so the dialogue flows as naturally as possible. Now it's time for the next stage, to record, write things down. As you see here, this can also help you process your thoughts, but it helps narrow down what you want to include in your documents. When we were talking about your substitute decision makers, this is a reminder to write down their names and their contact information, as well as keeping the list current. By writing things down, it minimizes the disputes that can arise within a family as well, because they will know that as it's written down, it is what you wanted. Keep the documents legible and accessible and their whereabouts known. Share the information and the documents with your trusted team members. I mentioned a couple of workbooks, such as My Voice and Speak Up, as examples of places to fill in your information as they walk you through your advanced care planning. Seek out what tools are available in your jurisdiction, as the terminology may be different, like I said before. Now it's time to review. Having done all the work is a great start, but you need to keep your information current. Sometimes laws change, and often our circumstances do as well. Certainly, if your health status or condition changes, or those you have listed as representatives move or perhaps pass away, you will need to adjust your documents accordingly. And a very important consideration is to share where your documents are located. Some communities have an arrangement with their fire department or paramedics, and if they are called to the home, they know to look for a green sleeve folder, either behind the front door or on the fridge, for example. Be sure to make copies for those who are part of your team so your voice and your wishes will be readily available. I love the second bullet on this slide. Talking and planning now will help reduce anxiety and give your support team the confidence they need to understand and communicate your wishes. And this reduces your anxiety as well as theirs. It truly isn't selfish to make this plan to ensure your voice is heard and your wishes are clearly outlined for when those what ifs of your health happen. The resources in this presentation were my go-to resources when I was working as a social worker, and they are great tools to assist you with your conversations as you make your advanced care plan into a reality. I haven't mentioned NIDA's Personal Planning Center, but in British Columbia, they are a community-based resource devoted to personal planning, especially helpful with the information on representation agreements, and they also provide a registry for them. I encourage you to seek out resources specific to your province or state so that the work you put into this advanced care planning is applicable legally to your situation. And once you've started your plan, revisit it periodically, especially when something changes in your circumstances. And finally, this PowerPoint video is meant to get the conversation started and not to take the place of any medical or legal advice. Thank you for walking through this planning journey with me. And remember, it's never too early to start planning. Take care.